that'd be number one, is like focus on making money. Number two is focus on serving people as well. Like make sure the stuff you're doing is really aligned towards helping people and serving them and like, giving them the most amount of value. And then the third thing I'd just say is like just
Hey, brother, you are most welcome to the episode of Rising Beings that we call Rags to Riches. So let's get started with the intro because the audience would love to know your a little of your intro.
amazing. Abby, thank you so much for having me on. It's an absolute pleasure to be on. You have some amazing episodes and amazing conversations. In terms of myself, intro for me, I guess the biggest stuff I like to talk about is like my story as a sentence or a summary is I was a Bulgarian immigrant who moved to England when I was super young, like 6 or 7. That's when I became like very fascinated with like human psychology, kind of learning the language, body skills, body language, like tonality. And that's what I realized now when I was like 17, 18. I really started to pick up and I realized the stuff I was trying to learn. I was when I was 7, 8 years old in a playground to have friends and be liked it's the same on the social media and the digital space. It's just different. It's the same kind of things. People want to be heard, people want to be liked, and they want to be known like you would in person. It's the same when you go into online, when you go into digital space. So it's really interesting. I always think one of my biggest difficulties growing up is probably like the one thing I've been able to learn the most from when it comes to social media and when it comes to sales and marketing and like since then I've been able to build more like build an online business online, make 6 figures and do all of these things. But it was not only because of the hindsight of having the lessons when I was super young.
All right. So as you have already mentioned that you were the immigrant to the UK. So how come you got to know about the business space and to the entrepreneurship, like the business that is happening on the internet?
Yeah. I honestly think to some extent I've also been quite lucky in the sense that I was in the right place at the right time. Like if I stayed in England, if I stayed in Bulgaria, I don't think I would have been able to see the opportunity, the massive amount of opportunity. When I moved to England, I saw like the difference of lifestyle and the difference of stuff. And I think that helped a lot. I think entrepreneurship and business for me and kind of what it means to me is just being able to build stuff more than anything. And I just like building stuff and that's it. Like when I was a kid, I used to like enjoy building stuff with like blocks and with cards and stuff like that with my grandma. Now it's the same for me. It's still the same kind of moving parts. It's still building one bit at a time. I don't feel like it's work to me. I just feel like I'm enjoying building things like everything in the last 7 years. When I first started my first ever business on online or even in physical location, I was 17 or 18 and like then it was maybe a little bit more for the money for like what I used to think business was, but then the more I did it, the more I realized it's like step by step you just need to build and like it's a game that you never finish. And I think that's why I like it so much. I like being able to build. I like being able to be competitive and be able to build. And I think that's kind of what's kept me in it for the last nearly 10 years is because I'm enjoying playing the game. Whereas I think some of the mistake I made initially, and I see people make, is they get into it because they just want to make like lots of money, which is great. But if you don't enjoy it, you can kind of drive yourself miserable, like I have over the years as well when I've not been careful of that.
All right. So yeah, that's something very interesting point that you mentioned. Like one has to keep enjoying with what they are doing. Absolutely.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I saw like you have a pretty good following on your Instagram. So how has your journey been? Because I see that you have created a lot of content as well. So how did those content help you to get that pretty good amount of the followers that you have?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I have been posting content on and off since I was 17 for nearly like, I don't know, nearly 10 years of content I've been posting. And it's so funny because the first 6 years maybe of posting content was for like different for different offers, and like I was just testing things. The first 6 years I think I gained like 0 to 3,000 followers, or 3,500 followers in the first 6 years of posting. And it was only in the this year when I was like, okay, I need to maybe change things. I maybe need to look at doing things a bit more, and push and really take it seriously. And that's where like a lot of the growth in terms of like followers and like the engagement on the page and stuff like that have come in. And It's been in the last 6 months, I would say. So it took me 6 years to go from 0 to 3,000 followers, and it took me 6 months to go from 3,000 to 50,000 followers. So like that's a weird, it's a weird kind of mental exercise sometimes to think about. What it's allowed me to do more than anything is like, I'm just with the content, and the way I do it is just, I'm just being myself. I'm just talking about my values, what I believe in, what I'm building. And because of that, I've just had some really amazing opportunities come through. Like I've been asked to podcast like yourself, to speak. I've done speaking events in London and stuff like that. But a lot of this is just coming from just me being my true self online. And because of that, I can also help people and help my clients with different things. And I think one thing I was scared of, like if you, as you mentioned, Abby, is like one thing I was scared of when I first started posting content, making it so much about me, my values, my family, like life, and what I get up to. One thing I was really scared of was like, if I post this content, then like it's not about business, it's not about like how smart I am. I'm not really selling anything. Like, am I going to get any clients? Am I going to get any money? But I think what I realized is like people want the human connection. They want to build a know, like, and trust. And I think the easiest way to do that is just by being your true self online. And like even being in London, like I think what's happening now is it's so exciting, because I think on social media the biggest thing now is like content. And I think the more people leaning into content, there'll be some really like rich people, really young people that make a lot of money with just being themselves on social media and content. Like it is so fascinating. I think before this, it was code. Like one of the first things was like Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk were like capitalizing on code, and like coding stuff like Facebook and social, and like the coding for stuff now is much more towards content, and it's just being yourself online, which
Right,
I think is really interesting.
right. Of course. See, the thing that you mentioned over here, step by step process one needs to figure out, right? And you started at the age of 17 posting contents, and you mentioned nearly 10 years that's been, right? So that consistency, that didn't you ever think that, okay, I am being consistent for the last 10 years nearly, and the only quantity that I have is 50,000 or 60,000? uh, didn't this thought ever come to your mind, or you ever thought of you should be having more of the followers because you have put a lot of efforts into it?
Yeah, yeah, so it's a really good question. Like, and for sure, I've definitely felt like that in lots of things. I felt like that in content a little bit. I felt like that with money as well. Like I've seen, I'm lucky that I have people like my friends, like that are much younger than me, making more money and have bigger businesses and stuff like that. A few of them, and I always think about that. I always, well, not always, but I've been thinking about that as well. It's like, what am I doing wrong? What's happening? And I think for the content one, I've almost this year, even like I subconsciously realized, like I was like, oh, I need to get to, I'd love to get to like this amount of followers. I need to get to this amount of engagement, this make this much money. And automatically, when I started thinking like, let me just get to 2,000 posts, and then I'll reevaluate and I'll see what's next. I think there's something powerful about just switching it to the outcome and switching it towards what can I do, what am I in control of. Every time I've thought about, I need to make this much money for the year or this much money for the month, for example, as well. If I can catch myself and if I can think, okay, what can I actually do to get there? For the content, it's really simple. It's like if I just post 2,000 posts online on social media, I can then realize, okay, I've done it. So I can feel good about myself because it's consistency. It's like showing up to the gym and doing the work. Um, so I think that's one of the elements is like if every time I find myself comparing to others or thinking I should have more, if I can just start thinking back on like what am I in control of and how much more work can I do? Because I think a lot of things is possible. It's just people don't realize. I don't realize how much more work you need to do than like you need to do much more work than you think you do sometimes to get to the outcome.
I really like this last sentence that you mentioned, that we need to do we need to put in there a lot of efforts, and we just sometimes think that we have put a lot of effort, but that might not be actually the real stuff. Maybe we need to go for the 200%. Right. That's really very true. So, if you are currently, I see that an agency owner who provides like ad services, right? So, what do you think, like, what one could do, like, as an entrepreneur in the internet marketing world on the internet? What can be something uh, done in a new way in 2025, or there's something that is going to remain same, and you think there's something that is going to be added in the new way of marketing 2025?
Yeah, I think the new way of marketing, and it's so weird because I think I wish I kind of knew this sooner and I saw it sooner. I think the new way of marketing going into 2025 is going to be much more about the person that people are buying from. I think we saw that a little bit already with popular influencers a few years ago, like Logan Paul, and like these big influencers would then be able to build trust, massive trust, and people would buy their stuff. I think this is going to be stronger than ever. But I also think what we learn from this as well is people lose trust when it's very choreographed and very kind of fake and very um, like movie like. I think what's going to happen is we're going to see much more like smaller content creators and personal brands be able to sell a very niche product and make like a lot of money online. So I think that's really powerful. And there's a massive room if you just create a personal brand about yourself, who you are, what you stand for, what you believe in. I think there's huge amounts of like power in that in terms of being able to grow going into the new year because I think there's so many there's so much like lack of trust as well I find at the moment, especially with like big shops and big brands and big chains. If you just build a brand about what you believe in and who you are, and you just talk about that and you talk about what you're building and how you help clients and what your intentions are, if you're a genuine person, I think people will see that and they would want to know how they can work with you and find out more. I think that's the one thing I would
Right.
be going all in on. And then you can run ads to it, you can do lots of it, but I had to go personal plan heavy in the new year.
All right. So, how helpful this podcasting has been to you, because you're also a podcaster, and side by side you run your marketing agency, right? So, how helpful that has been for you?
Yeah, the podcasts have been good. The pod like everything we do is pretty much goes to um short form content as well. So it's done really well from a short form content perspective. And then also, I think one thing in general I've tried to do more of and be better with this year is just be much more communicate and collaborate with people much more. Like not be competitive, but also collaborate much more with people and just ask for help much more, ask for ideas, ask. And the podcast has been amazing for that. Just being able to collaborate with people, and I think it's something so powerful. Like I wish the younger version of me would be like more collaborative because like when you collaborate with people, you can actually grow much quicker and everyone wins. And there's like infinite amount of energy, infinite amount of opportunities in life, in my opinion. So like if you collaborate, everyone wins, and it's a win-win.
All right. So that's something what I believe is a new trend that is going to uh, happen in 2025, like getting started with their podcast. That's what actually been happening, and I think that is something what is going to happen more, even more further in 2025, that people are going to start their podcast, that because that actually helps them to build their trust, and that uh, gives them the uh, new exposure to get directly in touch with the people who are at top, because you never know where does your next client comes from.
Exactly. Yeah,
Right.
exactly that. And it's like people listening to this, like business owners, coaches, like just doing more content with people together, be it a podcast, be it an Instagram live, a short form video, like whatever it might be, just doing more things with other people. It's probably like a very, very good idea. You're not trying to isolate yourself.
Right. Perfect. But I while communicating with you, I do not find anything like you are struggling with speaking English or something. You mentioned that you were an immigrant. So how was your mindset when you started, as a new guy to a new country? So how did you, uh, adapted everything so well, and you are running a great agency? How did that happen?
Yeah. It's such a good question because I honestly didn't think I adapted at all, to be honest. I think I I don't think I had like the best time at all in school. I think in general I kept myself to myself. I was very, very like introverted. I think my one of my first teachers, I think a lot in early years, I think I had like learning disability and stuff like that because I just didn't speak. I kept myself to myself. Like we literally moved um we literally moved like I think my mom decided and because my dad was already out here and my mom decided and a month later we moved, so it's very, very quick. I didn't really have time to learn anything beforehand, and I didn't adapt. I think I just kind of I adapted by just keeping myself to myself, staying very introverted. My lunch breaks and stuff like that, I'd just go to like the library or somewhere that like no one would like there wouldn't be that many people around and stuff like that. So I did a lot of that. And then by the time I turned, I think 16, 17, I was just like, okay, how can I this isn't really serving me too much. Like I'm learning stuff. I'm probably learning more just when I'm in the library or when I want to grow this thing. And I've seen like these content creators and I've seen everyone else doing this stuff. And I was just like, okay, I can maybe try and do this. And I think I just went all in because I just didn't know what other path to go with. And with Bulgarian household as well, like I think we have quite high expectations, or my mom and my dad and my grandma and stuff, I think have quite high expectations of success, and you need to like maybe similar to your kind of culture as well, but it's like you need to make sure you look after the family, make sure you look after the people you love. And I was just like, how can I make money? How can I make sure things move forward? And I think that was it. I think it was just that decision that made it work. But I think it was honestly like a bit of luck as well, like being able to spend a lot of time in the library and being able to like stay and like read books and do this while like everyone else was on their lunch break. I remember waking up like really early to go to gym and like listen to podcasts. And I was doing all of this because it was like a way of um maybe coping as well, because I was like, if I keep myself busy, I wouldn't like I'll learn, I'll stay fairly social because I'm learning from podcasts and books and stuff like that. But I really didn't have many friends. I think I just used that to move myself forward. And then it's really ironic because when you start your own business and when you start doing something, you really start pushing forward, it's such an awkward place, especially at the beginning, because your friends or your colleagues and stuff from school that are not doing this are gonna be like, wait, what are you doing? I wanna like work, I wanna work less. And it's you feel like an outsider. So you almost need to still push forward despite that noise as well. And I think that gave me a bit of an edge because I was always used to being like introverted. I was always been used to doing that. So like it just gave me a bit of an edge to could just go all in for the first few years. And then the more you do it, the more you meet other people that are doing the same thing, and you
Right.
can have fun stuff after a while.
Perfect. So I got two questions while you were sharing the stuff over here. So I felt like, okay, let me just go ahead and ask that, right? So the other question, as you mentioned, that you need to go all in. So I was like, okay, that is also a question of sales, when you are into the sales. So sales is something, you need to understand the customer's need, right, and wants, to go all in, to understand, not to just sell, right? You'll
Yeah,
just sell and you'll just come back, right? So it's not that way. It's not that one time stuff. You are going all in, of course, right? So
yeah,
before I ask this sales question to you, I would love to ask like the one very funny question over here. How much time
yeah.
did it take you to make your uh, first buck, first dollar or euro, maybe whatever it is? How much time did it take you to earn your first dollar, euro?
Yeah, amazing. I guess two parts. So like on this, I first worked at McDonald's as well, at my local McDonald's for between when I was young, like when I was 16, 17. I worked there for a little bit while I was working. The first dollar in terms of I was a personal trainer. I I'm not 100% sure on the gym floor because on the gym floor it was like I was already kind of in the groove of things and I was just kind of slowly transitioning. I was working some hours, I was getting clients. I didn't really track it too well. But I can tell you when I first went into the online space, I can tell you exactly like the client it was. Like I literally was thinking of his name beforehand. His name was Kai. He signed up and we had this call and it really hit me because maybe it took me 3 months, 4 months of just posting content, of messaging people, having conversations, of prospecting, taking sales calls, doing free challenges, doing like everyday content, Instagram lives, keeping people motivated with fitness. Like 3, 4 months of doing that. And one of the guys came through and yeah, he paid and he signed up. Like there was a small deposit payment, but it just hit me then like crazy because I'd say 18 or 19 at the time. And this guy just signed up and paid like money for someone like we've never met. It was a Zoom call we had, I think a Zoom call maybe we had, and he paid me money over the phone, and that to me was crazy. He was in England, and then another guy paid me, and he was in Serbia. That guy, like that, the payment for that was just like a Western Union. Like I remember having to go collect the money. It wasn't like a normal payment. It's really, really sketchy, like trying to collect money for that. And those two people, I think, just made me realize just how big the world is and how much opportunity there is. One was like Kai, and then the other one was the guy in Serbia. And I think that to me was just crazy that they both like invested and paid me money for like a coaching program for fitness. And I took it like I still take it extremely seriously when someone like pays you for anything. It's like you want to make sure they make more money, you want to make sure they get an incredible result because I remember seeing like my parents really, really struggle for money. So it's like super important to me that whatever I put my name into is like is going to get people more of a return because I know how thin and how scarce money can be as well in a Bulgarian immigrant household.
Right. As you mentioned over here, one thing. So like about that uh,
Yeah.
getting money. So I feel that we are hungry about becoming more successful. So there are a lot of people who are hungry, but sometimes they become desperate to become successful. So once you make that amount of a significant amount of money, so do you think that desperation is still there, or it has changed into some other format?
I Amazing question. I think desperation is like when you're speaking to people and when you're having conversations, I think desperation is like one of the worst things you can have, in my opinion. Because if I'm honest, like I remember, I don't know why, but I feel very, very passionate about this. Like I remember when I was like super, super hungry and super desperate and super motivated, and I was like, I hate this. I want to get out of this. I want to move. I want to do all of this stuff. I want to move forward. I want to make all this money. I was really kind of like angry at the world. I was really kind of fired up. Uh, if in hindsight, I think I just wish I kind of enjoyed that period a bit more because I was living with my parents at the time. Like I was always having like home cooked meals. I was always I was always having home cooked meals. I was always like eating well. I was always sleeping well. I was always warm. I was always being able to see my parents every night and like stuff like that. I didn't appreciate at the time because I was so far driven and so motivated towards kind of quote unquote getting out of this situation I really wanted to get out of, and I really wanted to make something like just money, and I wanted to go travel. So I think that's one part, but I also think if you're super desperate and it comes across, you come across desperate in the content, you come across desperate in the way you create your content, your that comes across in your content, the way you have conversations also comes across. So I would almost say it's amazing to have that hunger and that fire and that motivation to do big things. But if you can almost just center yourself a little bit more towards making sure you're there to serve the people you're speaking to, it'd be really powerful. Because when you're on a sales call, you touched on something amazing. Like when you're on a sales call, your job shouldn't be to sell or get or close a deal or make money. Your job should be there to actually understand the person you're speaking to and actually see if you can help them. And I think
That's
that's where, yeah,
right, right. That's absolutely true, right? So, I do have a lot of questions, and I think this podcast was pretty interesting, getting to know more about, that how have you been, and how did you make this agency, and we did cover a lot of good questions over here, and I feel to be very specific about a thing that you are doing, we shall get into another podcast and get that done for as of now. So I really would like to say thanks to the audience for watching us. And before we move ahead, what are the two or three advice you would like to give the entrepreneurs who are putting in the effort for the last 2 3 years, 4 years maybe, because you have been putting in the effort for the last nearly 10 years, as you mentioned, to put the content out there in the on the internet. So you gained a significant amount of followers, and that is helping you even grow further. So what would be the advice that you would give to those people who are into the internet space?
yeah, some really cool stuff here. Like you mentioned, I would say the first thing I would say is like for business owners, it's so easy to get distracted and just focus on like just stuff to do. The only biggest priority, in my opinion, a business owner or a new business owner should be really obsessed with is making money, is getting closing deals and signing up clients. And if you can almost have that somewhere as a North Star, in my opinion, for your daily productivity and your daily tasks, it'll be really powerful because at the start, you don't really know what you don't know. And like, I know a lot of business owners and I know myself, you just end up doing stuff that's just a bit pointless. Like you end up doing like a website or you end up creating like a YouTube video or like really in-depth stuff and really kind of flush, like really amazing programs. But if no one's in the program, no one's going to pay you money for it. So it's like if you remove the noise initially and you're like, is this going to get me paid? Is this going to make me money? Like a lot of the time at the start is having conversations with people and telling them about your program and just seeing if you can help them. That's usually going to get you clients. So that'd be number one, is like focus on making money. Number two is focus on serving people as well. Like make sure the stuff you're doing is really aligned towards helping people and serving them and like, giving them the most amount of value. And then the third thing I'd just say is like just be yourself online, be yourself on social media. Like I went through, I'm still guilty of this sometimes. I go through periods where I was so afraid of being myself because I was rejected for such a long part when I was being bullied and when I was in school and all of this stuff. I was so afraid of being myself. But people want that more than ever. People want a human connection, and like you realize no one's perfect, and it's an element of braveness and courage that even Peterson, Jordan Peterson would always talk about. It's like knowing what's going to happen. So I think that would be really powerful as well.
All right. That's really crazy and thought-provoking that you already mentioned, right? So I would again say thank you to the audience who has been watching us, and thank you to guest who has been over here providing the great insights and experiences that he has been through. So I would like to say thank you so much, brother, for being over here and providing the great insights to the audience over here.
Abby, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Perfect, perfect.